Before Mary met Pete, she'd already had another life. With her first husband, Fred, she'd spent a few good years where everything felt easy until his job went south. Fred, as Mary liked to joke later, was playing entrepreneur while she was off. At work, he was doubling down on a business that was already flatlining, piling up debt like it was on sale. The blame started flying. Quiet nights turned into tense ones, and in the end, no one bothered to patch the cracks. Mary didn't want to be the only one bailing water, and Fred was too busy trying to keep the lights on. So she walked. Almost right after the divorce papers dried, Pete showed up like a rom-com hero on cue. The guy knew how to court a lady, flowers at lunchtime, surprise coffee on a rainy day, even the late-night drives across town because she sounded a little down over the phone. Mary loved everything about him except one thing. The man came with carry-ons, a former wife, and a little girl who soaked up his weekends and a hefty slice of his paycheck. Pete felt it was his unshakable duty to stay in their lives, even though that family had ended ages ago. Every Saturday, he disappeared into dad mode and went dark. No calls, no texts. Then turned up Sunday night apologizing with roses and a grin. It drove Mary nuts. She wanted 100% all-in attention, nothing diluted. Still, after 6 months, Pete dropped to one knee, and Mary said yes before he finished the sentence. After stumbling out of a marriage with Freddie the failure, Pete felt like winning the Powerball. More than anything, Mary dreamed of a baby. She believed that once they had a child together, Pete would let go of his old family and focus only on their brand new one. Trouble was, month after month, nothing happened. 6 long years of doctors, hopes, tears, nothing. And Pete seemed weirdly calm about it. That calm turned into the spark for their blow-ups. "I'm doing all this for us. To be a real family," she'd shout through tears. "Sweetheart, we are a real family," Pete would say, hands up in surrender, not sure what else he could promise. Desperation does strange math. One night, Mary caught herself spinning a wild plan. What if she got help from another man, just once, to make that baby dream real? She scrolled through everyone she knew, and one name glowed like a neon sign. Fred Ever. Since the divorce, she'd shadow-watched his life online. Turned out Fred had clawed out of the hole, rebuilt his business, and now looked like a $1 million LinkedIn success story. Convinced he'd jump at a reunion coffee, Mary dialed him up. He agreed. Easy as that. She kept her real agenda holstered for the first meet so he wouldn't bolt. When Mary walked into the restaurant, the guy waiting at the table wasn't the weary Fred she'd left behind. This was a confident stranger in a tailored jacket. Her heart misstepped. They talked nonstop, the years between them melting away like ice in sweet tea. After that night, the messages flew back and forth every day. Mary soaked up the attention, and the baby plan with Pete slid to the back burner. She met Fred in secret. Coffees, walks, afternoons that stretched a little too late. Pete noticed. The sudden laughs at random texts, the unexplained errands, the way she seemed lighter, but never with him. One night over dinner, he eased into the topic. "Han, did you ever make that follow-up appointment with your doctor?" he asked gently. Mary blinked hard, like she'd forgotten the English language. Yeah. No, I mean, not yet. Everything okay?" he pressed. She mumbled a half-baked excuse about needing a break from the fertility rat race. Pete nodded slowly, watched her shoulders drop in relief, and filed the moment away. The question marks kept him up at night. Finally, over beers with his buddies, he cracked and spilled the whole mess. "Man," one friend joked, "make sure she doesn't bring home somebody else's bun in the oven." Pete leapt to defend her, then froze. Deep down, he was terrified that's exactly what was happening. When his buddy Alex stepped outside and handed him a private detective's number, Pete pocketed it, but wrestled with the idea all week. Spying felt like acid on trust, but the not knowing, Gnawed even worse. Then the unexpected happened. An unknown number lit up his phone. "Hello, Pete? This is Fred, Mary's ex. We need to talk." Pete tried to shut it down, but Fred insisted on a face-to-face. That night in their favorite neighborhood bar, Fred laid it out fast. Mary had pitched him the baby scheme, no strings, just help. Fred had stalled, but truthfully, he wanted revenge for the way she'd left him in ruin years ago. Telling Pete was payback. Plain and simple. The two men sat, beers untouched, until a plan took shape. Show Mary what betrayal really feels like. Fred invited her out to his new lake house, a place she'd never seen. She jumped at the chance, thrilled. When he said he'd thought about her proposal, the whole drive, Mary beamed. Sure, her dream was finally turning real. At the cabin, she swooned over the decor, gushing about Fred's impeccable taste, secretly wishing she'd never walked out on him. When he led her upstairs, whispering about a surprise she'd never forget, Mary's skin tingled. But when the bedroom door swung open, her breath hitched. Pete was seated in an armchair, eyes cold as January. Mary's gaze ping-ponged between the two men, her mouth opening and closing like a fish on dry land. "Traitors!" she shrieked, lunging at Fred with clenched fists. He eased her back, and she dropped, onto the bed, sobbing. "You really thought I'd let you use me after what you did?" Fred's words sliced. "You don't deserve a happy ending. Pete, tell him. I'm not the villain here." Mary pleaded through tears, but Pete's face was stone. In that moment, all the blind love drained out, replaced by something dark and final. The fallout was swift. Pete filed for divorce, dealing only through lawyers. Fred blocked her number. Mary crashed on a friend's couch, stunned that the men she'd counted on had vanished overnight. "All I wanted was a real family," she told anyone who'd listen, but no one stuck around long. The humiliation burned so deep she started drinking just to blur the edges. Blackouts became her new normal. She'd wake up in unfamiliar apartments. No clue how she got there. Mary spent months trying to claw herself back to the surface, but every ladder she grabbed splintered in her hands. And that's where we'll leave. Her, somewhere between the woman she was and the one she thought she could trick the world into believing she'd become. Learning the hardest way possible. That love, just like trust, is a debt that always comes due.